After weeks of being absolutely starved for news, we finally have training camp starting. News is starting to trickle in across the league, and we do not have to create graphics on the Colts 5-man tight end rotation. Let's do it.
ADP chasing is for when you watch ship chasing, you go, these guys are just football guys.
And the targets per outrun leagues, that's going to be really nice.
Actually back in if it's Ashane.
Stare into our crystal ball. Close your eyes, all your entries are going to lose anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is a Deuce Vaughn show.
It's anti-cabal. It's the best ball thought leaders. I'm obviously lying to some degree because, I have a lot of both of these guys.
It's the most disgusting pick you can make. But, man. Davis, Pat, how we doing today?
Doing good. How you guys doing?
We're doing great, man. We're doing phenomenal. Training camps are started. I've already began to change my philosophy based on what dudes are doing in pads. I mean, it's as good as it gets.
You're taking Chiefs even higher. Is that what you're saying?
Just be honest. You watched the clip of Xavier Worthy catching a 55-yard bomb over his shoulder through a defender. It moved a little. Just be honest about it.
Definitely a little. Yeah. Rashee Rice seems like maybe the suspension risk for this year's going down slightly. It's all looking up for the Chiefs.
Well, I was hoping we would get to this because I don't think this will really. I guess, Sam, I didn't look at our charts. Do we need to save the Chiefs wide receiver stuff?
Rashee is one of the risers, so we'll get
to an amazing amount of restraint from Davis there.
Let's save it then. Let's save it.
We'll save it.
Yeah. Can we talk about the Chiefs now or later?
I don't want to
save it a bit.
I don't want to step on your graph.
Before we do get into the risers fallers, and by the way, little preview of today's show. Obviously, you can see no guests today. It's just going to be a classic risers and fallers episode. So we'll get to that later. But I did want to hit on on the topic of training camp news. Curious, starting with you, Pat, what is your process for absorbing training camp news? Do you have a couple go-to sources you're reading articles on, like The Athletic? Are you just scrolling Twitter? How are you kind of taking it all in as training camp news starts to hit us?
I do think The Athletic is probably your best bet. I also give a shout out to the Legendary Upside Discord, available for members, where there's a feed in there that pulls in every post from the 32 pages, team pages on The Athletic, which you think wouldn't necessarily just go to The Athletic, but sometimes it doesn't, the feed, their feed has all this national stuff in it. So this just pulls from all the individual team pages, which is really good for getting what we really care about, which is the training camp news and notes pieces where the people who are actually there tell us what was going on. And that kind of would lead me to my second thing, which is that is what we care about right now. If it's just speculation, if it's just there was an article about Javonte Williams competing with Samaje Perine that came out over the weekend. That was a dude who's man, Javonte wasn't very good last year. Look at these numbers.
No, I disagree on that specific article, actually.
Only going to keep, okay, let's get into that, because that to me was a quintessential piece of there's no news here, and you really
no, that's quintessential. That guy's been told something off the record that he can't say. This coach told me this, but he can say Estime is making the team. Which Estime was a 4th round pick for all these beat writers, and these by the way, I mean, you want to talk about. We've been in the trenches with the Denver beat writers over the years. I mean, the Dulcich Alberto wars. I've got personal relationships with these guys as a result of the Dulcich Alberto stuff. And unilaterally, there's not one. Cecil Lammey, Ben Albright, the DNVR guys, they all are saying the same thing, which is Estime, stone cold lock. He will be on it doesn't matter that he got a knee scope. He would basically have to colossally fumble training camp. In my experience, Corinne and Sam, I never remember a day 3 rookie running back, basically, where the beat writers are yep, he's just on the team.
It is odd, though, because he hasn't even been out there.
No.
So what's it based on?
That they must literally hate Javonte. I mean, that's got to be what it is. Or he's the only running, I believe Javante's listed at 208. He's the only one who is big, because you don't want Pirine being your early down rusher in any circumstance. He's horrible at it.
No. I mean, but that is very. So the other weird thing about that article to me was that they were like, we're going to keep Estime for sure. We're keeping McLaughlin, and then we're not keeping a fourth running back. So it's down to Dontayvion.
That I've been told is not true 100%, actually.
Well, I guess I could be wrong here, and I do think paying attention to like hearing it from a bunch of different sources is really important. So the Estime stuff, there's some smoke there, but the idea that he basically has not participated in the offseason program so far and is a lock for the game day active.
Crazy.
I'm just really skeptical of that. I still think he is a day 3 rookie. He's still got to show something. Maybe that is what they're hoping will be the case, but it's still July. That is not a lock. I mean, to be active on game day, he's going to have to show something in training camp. That's just a fact. I mean, even if they really expect him to do that.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. A couple things on the Javonte thing. I agree that we have to be careful just getting into beat writers' opinions. And I do think that specific article you're talking about, Crane, it did seem more like speculation, kind of that guy's opinion. I will say to Davis's point, it's been a pretty consistent opinion, I'd say, across the Denver beats that Javonte's role is, I guess, less secure than maybe the ADP implies. And the second thing, the 3 running back thing, I did look into that a little bit. Actually, last year, they only did keep 3 running backs on the roster all year. They have Michael Burton, who was a fullback. They re-signed him this year. So I do think the 3 running back thing is maybe actually potentially true. And if you believe just based on their contracts,
it's definitely potentially true. But it's but to lock in all I'm saying is the 3 running back means that they're all going to be active. And so it's especially kind of jarring to see someone lock in and ink Estime in that role, which is probably good for him. It means they're really excited about him. But I just don't think we should use ink for a dude who hasn't really been able to be out there yet.
Yeah.
Are you guys woke enough to know that Blake Watson is on the non-football injury list, and that
I did know that.
You got to be pretty woke to know that Blake Watson is on the non-football injury list, and that I think that makes it marginally more likely that they actually keep 4 running backs.
Do you want to have a woke off?
Well, tell me if you've gotten woke enough to do my favorite running back is likely to make the roster because of kick return rules. If you start getting to the my favorite roster,
I haven't drafted Tyrone Tracy since what are you talking about? This is before he was drafted. I've been drafting this guy. Do you know that Gerald Everett's on the NFI list?
No, that dude,
you gotta get more woke, dude.
I mean,
that's a deep cut.
At this point, though, aren't you guys almost rooting? Yeah, Sam's on.
Sam dropped off. That was too gross.
Sam's in his grandmother's tea room, so the Wi-Fi is a bit spotty.
He's got to go brew another pot.
I wonder if I actually, at this stage, am better off with Pirine just making the Broncos' initial 53-man roster, because that makes it less likely he ends up on the Bengals.
Yeah. Well, hang on.
I mean, especially if you've been drafting Cowboys too. Those are the 2 scary ones.
Pirine could end Rico Dowdle season early.
No, dude, you want to talk about Spider-Man meme? That is Zeke Elliott and Samaje Perine. Those dudes are just big pass protectors at this point.
Yes, but that is a fundamental misunderstanding of the Cowboys' relationship with Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke is the starter.
I think even thinking Perine will go there is a fundamental misunderstanding of their relationship.
Okay, fair. No, that's fair. That non-derogatory. That's fair.
All right, we're getting into Gerald Everett and Samaje Perine. It's probably time to get.
Oh
to
no,
Rodgers
are we off the rails?
I think we're a little off the rails. My Wi-Fi is so bad that it's going to make it hard to keep things on the rails today, but I'll try my best.
Gerald Everett just came off the NFI. You're getting out.
Okay, breaking. We need a Roto World, but for news that's so irrelevant that it doesn't even make it to a Roto World blurb.
All right, thanks, Michael.
That is
one BBM
is
draft.
the
You don't
show.
read the Athletic for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to start here with the 49ers wide receivers. Deebo is here as the biggest riser. He's up 3 spots. He's basically flip-flopped Aiyuk here, who was started at pick 19 down to now 22 over the past week. That's a pretty big drop for someone going in the first 2 rounds. Obviously, this is based on news that Aiyuk has requested a trade, maybe some people pricing in some holdout risk or some trade risk. I'll start here with my take. I honestly don't really understand the fall for Aiyuk. I guess 19 to 22, it's kind of the same tier, whatever. I guess I get it. But to me, this is not news that should be moving ADP, in my opinion. I think Aiyuk has very little leverage. I think even if there is a trade, like there's some scenarios where he could have huge upticks in volume potentially. So I'll kick it to you, Davis. Are you reacting to this Aiyuk holdout trade request potential news?
Yeah, I'm reacting to it by thanking the fantasy football gods that instead of going into the season with 25% Deebo Samuel and 2% Brandon Aiyuk, my exposures are now going to approach something much more close to sanity, because I was not going to be drafting Brandon Aiyuk. It's truly one of the funniest things. Like, ask someone who's a big Brandon Aiyuk bull how many targets they thought Brandon Aiyuk got last year, and they're probably like, oh, I bet he got 140 targets, right? 107 target wide receiver going as like, what was he, the 18th overall pick or whatever? It's kind of insane. So I wasn't going to have hardly any Aiyuk before. Now I can just very comfortably take him because he is where he should be going, right? He's kind of your classic 2-3 turn ceiling swing. I think he's like 97% to be a 49er. I think it's very unlikely he gets traded. Very unlikely he skips a year of service time. He's just going to play for the 49ers. And Deebo is also continues to be a great pick because he's like, Deebo's game is built for best ball. Deebo is the ultimate kind of high price, better in best ball guy. We're sure there are definitely going to be some weeks where he gets you 7.2 points in a way that Chris Olave probably won't, but he continues to have like some of the highest single game ceilings in fantasy. So this is just the market returning to sanity.
Yeah. Crane, curious your thoughts if you're pricing in any trade, holdout risk, anything like that with Aiyuk.
I agree with Davis on kind of the like this part doesn't matter. I don't agree with him on the Aiyuk analysis. I mean, I think he's one of the best wide receivers in football. He's on one of the best offenses in football. I know it's crowded. I know he hasn't shown like the single game ceiling that Deebo has, but that feels like, given that he's a deep threat, he's awesome over the middle and deep. He's awesome after the catch, and he's on an offense that is about as good at scheming yards after catch as any offense in the league. That just strikes me as like way too precise. Like this, he's really good. He's on a good offense. That is ceiling. So I guess I'm a little bit, maybe even happier to scoop the discount. Like, one thing I did today is out of the 2-hole, this is a BBM. I went CD Lamb. Then I grabbed Achane. And I was like, I bet that, especially because the CMC drafter, Aiyuk is never that fun to draft with CMC because you just want it to all go through CMC anyway.
Right.
I bet Aiyuk comes back. And he did. And
yeah.
That's like,
yeah.
I'm going to try to do stuff like that a lot. Like I'll probably attempt to benefit from the discount in those types of ways, but I don't think there should be a discount on this. Like this is just like, it's like watching someone go through the steps that one has to go through in this situation. Like, now you ask for a trade request. The trade request doesn't go anywhere. It's all just like the leverage, that you have to create to get the contract you're looking for or whatever. Like it doesn't have any impact, most likely. I mean, there's some small tail outcome risk here, but the vast majority of cases, like, this just isn't really even a thing.
It would have to be like the team pissed him off so much that he's taking it personally. Like something like, I don't know. I did see something that, the 49ers, I think around the draft, they told Aiyuk, hey, you can go see, teams on the open market, see if you can get more money from a team like the Patriots, like see what they'd be willing to offer you. And apparently a lot of teams said, yeah, we are willing to pay you like a high-end wide receiver. So I don't know, maybe something like that, pissing Aiyuk off, like feeling like he's not valued by the team. But I'd put that at a very, very low % chance that he holds out or impacts, the team's plans within this year. I did quickly also want to walk through, like, even if you do believe there's chances of a trade. These are 5 teams that are kind of most rumored to be in on Aiyuk, and I don't think we have to spend a lot of time on that. But I quickly just kind of went through the exercise of, okay, like if he's on the Patriots, the team pass volume, actually, you look at ETR, other projections, I think San Francisco and New England are actually pretty similarly projected in pass volume. Aiyuk would have a much higher target share than he would on the Patriots, but obviously much worse efficiency in sort of a median outcome. So put that together, and I'd say his ADP kind of sticks around the same range of 20 to 25. But you can do this with other teams. I think like the Steelers maybe is like the nightmare scenario where he could drop a full round, like maybe. But like even if you think this trade thing is real, I don't think it's going to impact his ADP that much. And there's some like moonshot scenarios like him on the Chargers. I think it'd really skyrocket up boards. So some other scenarios that are pretty exciting. So all in all,
Steelers would be really, really bad.
Steelers would not be ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Commanders, I think, would be potentially really good and potentially worse. But like Aiyuk, in scenarios where Aiyuk's like a true league winner, I think like I'm probably favoring the Commanders over the 49ers there, just because you get the Daniels correlation, and like also McLaurin's not like that good. He's fine.
No, he's not that good. Yeah. I think that's a good point.
And Dotson has been bad, like straight up bad since he's in the league. Even the good rookie season was just because he scored touchdowns. He was really inefficient that year in yards. So, and then obviously Luke McCaffrey, like we don't know, but like the downside, right, would be he goes to the Commanders and he's like, is he even able to earn targets with this crowded receiving core? Like, yes, he is actually.
Yeah. He's gonna just his target share, which I have in this column here. Like, you got to come up with a crazy trade scenario where his target share projection doesn't go way up versus where it is now. I mean, he's on a team with Deebo Samuel, a running back in Christian McCaffrey that projects for the highest running back target share in the league, a tight end in George Kittle that projects for a pretty high tight end target share, like 2 pretty good tertiary pieces in Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall. Like the 49ers are maybe by far the most crowded, overall
and a low
player
volume
room in the league.
And a low volume offense, relatively speaking.
Yeah, low volume offense, good defense, likes to be in control of games. Like they don't tend to put the pedal to the floor as much as other teams. So in some ways it's an unideal situation, but it's also hard to be out on like a really good player in a really efficient offense where, the 49ers are going to put up points consistently. So it's just tough because like, should Deebo get more work? Should Deebo get more downfield work? Like, absolutely. Should Kittle get more work week in and week out? 100%. This is truly crowded, but I think that should at least give us more confidence that Aiyuk is really good because he's out here like kind of as the number one option, such that there is in this offense, but it would be him. That's impressive. This is extremely difficult. I mean, I guess you could say CMC, but as far as receiving options go, like downfield, it's impressive that he's been able to establish himself with this competition.
Yep. And quickly, just on the Deebo Aiyuk thing, I did some work on this. I think maybe for some playoff DFS stuff. I kind of wanted to look into Aiyuk versus Deebo. Yeah, if you look at sort of their just fantasy scoring side by side, this is PPR, so a little bit different than underdog scoring. Deebo has been kind of consistently better than Aiyuk, but a lot of that is skewed by the 2021 season where Deebo obviously exploded. More recently, Aiyuk and Deebo have been pretty neck and neck in scoring. And then this view here, I think, is interesting. This dashed line is rushing fantasy points versus the solid line, which is receiving fantasy points. So you can really see that, like, the story with Aiyuk versus Deebo is Aiyuk is a better wide receiver, but Deebo gets all this schemed rushing production that basically helps him catch up. Like, which is to Davis's point that I think Deebo is kind of an awesome spike week best ball player. Like, he'll get the random 2 rushing touchdown game that you can't really project, but
a 4% exposure blanket on Deebo. It's not going to cover your feet. It's not going to cover your hands. It's just going to be very drafty. I would recommend like a 16% quilt on Deebo. I think like just like a custom handmade, your grandma made it, double stitched sort of, fully encompassing 16% quilt on Deebo Samuel.
I think even with the field, it feels about right to me. That's where I'd like to end up.
It's not good, Crane. It's not good. I think conceptually it feels good, but I just think you show up to the finals and you're looking at the Deebo teams and you're like, man, Deebo just scored 4 touchdowns on 4 touches. I'm so dead.
4 touchdowns.
49ers.
4 touches.
That is the
hyperbolic line.
That is the quintessential 49ers experience. That is just like what the 49ers do. Is you like George Kittle literally had a game last season with 3 targets, 3 catches.
Are you watching receiver?
No, I'm refusing to do my best ball homework. I refuse to do it.
Receiver I've been watching. You're feeding the baby. You gotta have something on.
Sure.
It's really good. I'm really enjoying it.
And Kittle is featured in it, right?
He's featured in it, and Deebo is as well. They have Deebo, Kittle, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra. By the way, it's Amon-Ra. No, it's Amon-Ra. I did it right the first time.
Yeah.
And Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams has always been a fan, but he is awesome.
The chat wants me to watch receiver so bad. I would say this has been the talking point of like the last 4 shows I've been on, is the chat just being like, bro, you got to watch receiver.
By the way, did you guys know Deebo's nickname, where it comes from?
No.
The movie.
Yeah, from Friday.
Yeah.
Because his dad was like, you could like stealing kids' stuff, and then he was like, so he just started naming after a character who steals people's stuff.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
That's hilarious.
That's even more. That's even more grown man. I mean, that's just another reason.
It's pretty grown man.
It's a grown man.
Yeah. Speaking of grown men, Nick Chubb, next riser here. He's up 11 spots in ADP, presumably entirely because of this workout video where he's squatting like an absurd amount of weight. I mean, look at this squat rack. That's insane. No real news though on his recovery. There was an Athletic article that came out about the Browns running back room, and I'm forgetting the Browns beat writer right now, but he basically made the point that there's no timeline. Chubb has emphasized there's no timeline. The team's not saying anything about a timeline. So yeah, no real news here, just good old fashioned workout video hype. So yeah, Crane, curious, you adjusting the ranks on Chubb at all, or maybe honestly, just like what are your thoughts on his ADP around 130 now? Does that fairly bake in his injury risk, or is it still too high for you?
So there was a report, I forget exactly what but it was something like, I saw some of the Twitter doctors talking about how it's possible that his ACL wasn't repaired, it was reconstruct. I don't know what the terminology was, but it was basically like maybe this injury wasn't as bad as we initially thought, as far as it specifically as it relates to the ACL. That was my impression. But I was like, but from reading people who actually know what they're talking about, it was like this actually would speed up his recovery timeline a bit.
Interesting.
There's not that I saw anyway, confirmation of which it is, but I was like, that does potentially provide a path to like maybe we're being too bearish on what his recovery actually looks like. And then it has been pretty bullish in terms of the reports that we've been hearing, not just him squatting a ton, but like he seems on track. Now, I guess what I would say though is that like on track has always been kind of like you're hoping he's producing down the stretch. And as stuff like this comes out, maybe people forget that like he still probably misses regular season games. And I don't know that I want to be like chasing up as he rises on hype. That's where people kind of lose sight of what the bet really is. So I've actually been taking Chubb. I'm at 6% now.
Wow.
Yeah, I kind of got back in at like in the 130s, 140s there. And I'm okay if he's going to get up into the 120s, into the 1-teens, like I'll sit that part out and hope that maybe he falls when people remember that, he's not going to be there for the very beginning of the season.
Right.
Yeah. I don't have a lot else to say on Chubb. I think that was sort of the buying window, 130 to 140. I mean, who knows? News can always break in one way or another with the injured players, but that seemed like a good time to get him. Like when he was going and the other running backs on the board were Ty Chandler or Kendre Miller, that's when I was like, okay, Now it's time to get some Nick Chubb.
Exactly.
I still have a hard time taking him over like Charbonnet and the Dallas guys, which is, I guess, back where he is now. But I don't think it's like a terrible pick at pick 130. It's just not one I'm making a ton.
Yeah, but I think you'll get another window at it. I think like he'll probably fall again. It's tough to know how much he'll rise before that. Yeah.
And again, which is with the timeline, like a 9-month return from his surgery, that's like the standard timeline for a clean ACL, which Nick Chubb's injury was definitely not. 9 months would have him on track to play week 1, but if it's more in the 10 to 12 month range, which I think people expect for this type of major multi-ligament ACL tear, we're still talking about likely some missed time. So I'm not updating my priors too much on how much time Chubb is going to miss. I still think he probably starts on PUP, comes back mid-season, but yeah, definitely promising that he's at least on track and we're not getting negative news out of Cleveland. Let's move on here to Rashee Rice. As we talked about at the beginning, up 4 spots. I guess some optimism that no news is good news for the suspension. Davis, take it away on Rashee Rice.
I mean, it's kind of actually, in a weird way, it's actually going to hurt the teams that I'm building, because what's going to happen is Worthy is going to get cheaper because Rice is going to move up. I was already drafting Worthy at his Pico top. I'm not going to stop drafting Worthy just because Rice is not suspended. So it's gonna hurt my Jacquard tree in the sense that I'm gonna have. Well, maybe it will help.
Davis, when you take Rice in the 5th and Worthy in the 6th instead of Worthy in the 5th and Rice in the 6th, the Jacquard tree is the same.
Now, what actually it will free you up to do is it will allow you to build Chiefs teams in a slightly different way, where you'll be able to take Mahomes in the 4th at ADP, and then you'll be able to take. I mean, you can take Pitts in the 5th, you can take McLaurin, you can take one of the Chicago wide receivers, you could take James Cook, and still have Worthy available to you in the 6th round sometimes. So maybe it will allow you to build slightly more diversified Chiefs teams. I mean, it would not surprise me to see Rice go even higher than this, though. If you can think back all the way to when we were drafting in the big board, Rashee Rice was I believe he got as high as the wide receiver 11. Is that right, Crane? I mean, he was
at the 2-3 turn.
He was quite high. Now, that was before the knowledge that they were signing Hollywood Brown. That was before they drafted Worthy in the 1st round. But I think, here, let me pull up Mike Clay's projections.
While you do that, can I just suggest Chiefs teams in a slightly different way as a potential YouTube title for you for an upcoming?
I'm having Hayden on tomorrow, and Hayden is totally on board with me that the Chiefs are completely mispriced. So I have a feeling
Chiefs teams in a slightly different way with Hayden Wicks.
Chiefs teams in a slightly different way. Okay, so Mike Clay's projections. I mean, not to say that Mike Clay is the GOAT of projections, but they're pretty good. They're the best free ones for sure. He's got it segmented out in a very hilarious way. He has Rashee for how many games? He's got him for 13 games, 189 PPR points. He's got Marquise Brown and Xavier Worthy for exactly the same amount of PPR points, 175 for each, which is, I mean, that's pretty funny. I mean, obviously there's a difference between what we're trying to accomplish in best ball and what you're trying to accomplish in a median projection. Yep. But Rice being the 3rd drafted when he's projected at a median for the most points is, I think, an indication that by August 3rd, I bet Rashee ends up going ahead of Christian Kirk. I bet he gets all the way back in to the 4th round. I mean,
assuming are you saying there's no suspension?
Assuming basically either the team says he won't be suspended or the market discounts it almost entirely, which it kind of seems like they're doing at this stage.
Yeah, I think so. There was a question: is no news really good news? It is, in the sense that he needs to. The NFL's not going to step in and suspend him. I mean, I guess there's a chance, but it's unlikely.
I think it's unlikely.
Anything happens until we get some kind of resolution with the criminal case here. So the news that we're really waiting on is when is this trial? When is this, things moving forward with the criminal case? If that sort of is on the, if that's kind of in the slow lane, then he's not going to get suspended, relative to him getting like some kind of outcome soon. And then it's much, much more likely that he gets suspended this year. So like, that's where I think no news is good news. But of course, like maybe we just don't know. And in fact, this is all going to come down and he's going to get suspended this season and we're going to chase it up. So there is that risk. But I've been following what Drew Davenport's been saying on it, and he has moved slightly, or maybe more than slightly, but not a ton, in the direction of the suspension not happening this year. So it does seem like it's real that the risk is going down slightly for this year, but it's just difficult to price exactly how much.
Because the main thing that I've seen, and I think Drew pointed this out, maybe Hayden Winks as well, that the criminal trial date, like no one can find when that is, or perhaps it hasn't even been scheduled yet, but that's kind of the next date we would need to know. Because like you said, I guess there is, you can say there's some chance Goodell puts him on the exempt list. Yes, that's possible, but in the vast majority of cases, the NFL does not act until some kind of criminal charges have happened, or sort of the legal stuff has occurred. So yeah, I guess
I don't see that coming, because I think they're going to hit him with a decent suspension, Yeah,
so I don't see them acting before the legal stuff happens. I don't really see that.
This is to me, it's the Kamara thing again, where because it's actually so certain that he's going to be convicted of a crime in court, the league is just going to say, we're letting it play out. We're going to let the legal system play out. And it doesn't seem like they're rushing him into a courtroom anytime soon.
I agree. I think they're going to let the legal system play out. And part of that is driven by the confidence that it will play out in some way.
Yeah. So there has been a ton of Rashee Rice talk in the show, obviously. I did want to get a little bit into today, less of the suspension risk stuff and more about just like who he was as a player, because I still think it is underrated, just like how weird of a player Rashee Rice is.
He's so weird.
He's really weird. So I started here with, this is Matt Harmon's charting work. And if you look at his success rate by route on the left, he basically just wins in the underneath routes, which he's really, really good at, to be fair. And nearly 50% of his routes were just slants, flats, and screens. Like that's a very, very unusual route tree for someone who averages, 2.2 yards per route run or whatever it was his rookie year. So
sixth best in the entire NFL. I was just looking at it this morning, and I was trying to come up with a good engagement farmer tweet, just sorting by yards per route run, seeing if there was anything there. And it's like Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, Rashee Rice. And you're like, wait, what? That is not, I don't remember it being that good.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And so I pulled the top 10 rookie wide receiver seasons by yards per route run since 2013. And this includes playoff games, so maybe is slightly different than if you look at regular season. But Rashee Rice has the 10th best rookie season by yards per route run since 2013 at 2.21. And if you look at the rest of the guys in this chart, Rice just stands out here as a massive outlier in terms of his ADOT. Basically, everyone else on this list has an ADOT of 13 plus. Puka is really the only one close to him with an ADOT of 9.4. And Rashee Rice's ADOT of 5.0. Like, I just think it doesn't get talked about, like how crazy that is for a wide receiver. Like in the last decade, there's only 7
I was
recorded
going to say
seasons.
the St. Brown comparison is the one that Corain made to me that I was like, that is completely that is how he goes from being, a useful, interesting fantasy player in year 1 to like a round 2 fantasy wide receiver in year 2.
Exactly. Yeah. So these are the players, and these aren't rookies anymore. Actually, I don't think any of these players are rookies, but these are just recorded seasons in the last decade of players that have over 2 yards per route run with an ADOT of less than 7.5. And it's a very short list, only 7 players. Amon-Ra's on there, Jarvis Landry, Cooper Kupp, Randall Cobb, Landry again, and for some reason, Kendall Wright. But even these other players, like he's still an outlier in ADOT. Like his 5.0 ADOT is still, significantly lower than Amon-Ra St. Brown, those Cooper Cup seasons. So I'm not saying like I have the answers on this Rashee Rice stuff, but it is just a really, really weird player. And I do think you have to project some kind of growth in his route tree for him to be a difference-making player, because with added target competition, I don't think he's going to see the same rate of targets underneath like you saw last year. But yeah, don't have a specific question here, but curious, Corinne, if you've thought of like any comps for Rashee Rice, or if you're worried about like his growth as a player, given how limited he was as a rookie.
So yeah, to me, this is sort of the definition of descriptive. I really don't, I'm not really swayed by like he had a low ADOT, therefore we should throw away the really predictive, highly efficient rookie season on a lot of routes. In fact, I think the fact that he didn't have a lot of first read targets would be the thing I would point to is, being weird. He did but it's hard to have really high yards per route run. Honestly, it's kind of harder to have a high yards per route run on a low ADOT because it's
really
requiring
hard.
him to make a lot of plays. So in a sense, that's like more impressive. It's also kind of like not what we would prefer. We prefer you get targets downfield. So I'm not saying it's actually bullish, but it's just kind of like, that's strange. And then I do think actually the ability to earn a lot of volume without a ton of first read targets is bullish, especially if, you've got draft capital behind you, which he does, and you're entering your second season when you might expect them to scheme up more stuff for you and you to be a bigger part of the game plan. So that part is also weird, but I think kind of bullish. One guy that's not on here, and I don't think this is like a true comp, but another really weird player, Deebo had an 8. What do you think?
Yep.
What do you think his ADOT was in his second season?
Yeah, it's probably like 7.7 or something.
I was going to say,
yeah,
close.
That's a good guess. It was 2.2.
Wait, what?
His ADOT in 2020 was 2.2, according to PFF.
Did they do a bunch?
That's
they must
insane.
have done they must have done a bunch of the pop passes to him.
2.2.
Yeah.
7.9 as a rookie, drops to 2.2 as a sophomore.
That's so crazy.
Yards per route goes 2.06 to 2.26. I don't know if he's not only because of a route cutoff or something, but because he only ran.
Yeah, he only played in 6 games.
Routes. Yeah,
he just played in 6 games that year, so I think I filtered it out because of that. But yeah, that's a good.
Yeah.
So Christopher is making a point in chat, and I think people are using that, like the Rice Bears are using this in reverse. They're saying everything Rice had was schemed up gadget pick play stuff designed to get yak. Well, one, it's not right, and two, even if it was, you want that stuff as a Chiefs player. You don't want that stuff if you're a Steeler. You don't want that stuff if you're on the Denver Broncos. But you do want that on the Chiefs. The Chiefs have been such a weird team the last 5 years because of how many high-profile busts they've had. The running backs have been weird too. If you think about the history of the Damian Williams, Darrell Williams, Sharkandrick West, Spencer, like we don't even have time to get into all that. They're a fundamentally weird team, but just because Rice is maybe the second or third best wide receiver on the team doesn't mean that his role is not going to be the most fantasy valuable role. Like maybe Worthy is as good as I think he is, but he ends up kind of being annoying for fantasy because it's a role that goes between he gets 2 targets in a 31-10 win against the Raiders, but then in a game against the Chargers where they're trailing, he ends up he gets 28 points or whatever. But like Rashee is just going to have like a 23% target share, and he's going to score 7 touchdowns, and he's just going to be a very valuable fantasy player.
Yeah, and he did get a lot of screens last year, but that's not the only thing he was getting. Like he was also getting, and a lot of the other stuff he was getting was lower ADOT stuff, but he was he was getting open as second, third read as Mahomes wasn't able to get the ball deep to MVS or whatever. He'd check it down to Rice underneath as an outlet. And also I guess some of this stuff is very, I would just be careful. If you're saying something like, oh, it's all screens, maybe just check to see who else got screens. Tyreek Hill led the league in screens last year. Jamar Chase was second in screens last year. Like, getting screens is not bad, and it also doesn't mean you can't play. So Rice was fourth in wide receiver screens last year, behind Tyreek Hill, Zay Flowers, Jamar Chase. JSN was fifth, which was why do we care about that? Because he didn't get the other stuff. If you get the screens and you get the other stuff, which is what Rice got, we love it. We don't want you to only get the screens. So that's to me a very hollow point that it was just screens, because it wasn't just screens, and the fact that it did get screens to Davis points on the Chiefs is pretty sweet.
Yeah, and to be clear, I wasn't like pulling this out here to say this is like bad for Rice. I was just pulling it out to show like how unique of a player he is in the NFL. Like, there are very few historical examples of a player winning like Rashee Rice did. And I do think if I was gonna, there's some people in the chat that are a little bit bearish on Rice. I will make the point that I think it is fair to question if he can hold up this targets per route run of 24% he had in 2023. I mean, look at the wide receivers that were running. I pulled here all of Rashee Rice's routes last year, and then I
look at this team. Look at the guys.
Like, these were the guys that were on the field when Rashee Rice was running routes. It was MVS, Justin Watson.
Imagine questioning
Sky
Mahomes'
Moore.
This dude just won a Super Bowl with this. This just won a Super Bowl.
It's insane. So I guess
45% of the routes to Justin Watson.
Yeah, like when Rashee Rice is on the field, you take out that 56% MVS and 45% Justin Watson and all this other garbage, Sky Moore, Tony, Richie James. You replace that with Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown. And if those guys are good, I think you can make the point that, you're saying, Crane, that Rashee Rice is getting all these second and third read looks. Well, maybe if the first read isn't MVS and Justin Watson, maybe he doesn't get those looks. So that's the thing is that, the overall offense could be better. So it could offset some of this for sure.
Better, yeah.
This is my favorite graphic of the Colts tight end graphic is my favorite. This is the second favorite. Is like it's just so obvious.
Those guys are garbage.
This is what's going to happen. The Chiefs are going to consolidate their routes because they've got more than two good players for the first time. I mean, really think about it. I guess the best third pass catcher in the Mahomes era was half a season of Sammy Watkins before he died when Tyreek was still there.
Probably, yeah.
This is the first time they're going to have more than two capable pass catchers on the roster. We don't really know what it's going to look like. I'm not saying I have the answer. I'm trying to have a pretty equal distribution of all three of Rashee and Hollywood and Worthy. But I'm like,
I am saying I have the answer. I think we take a second-year breakout and a first-round rookie who's the fastest ever over a receiver who was never that good and has declined for like 3 straight seasons. That's how I think we should play it.
I think that seems fair. I truly do think that seems fair. And if I actually have been backing off a little bit on Hollywood.
I took him in a 5.55 yesterday because he was available in the late 6th, and then Worthy goes in the 7th. So I was like, I'm just going to get both. And I had Kelsey and Mahomes.
Yeah,
I didn't get Worthy, and I've definitely thought about that a few times.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think this is like, it's going to be one of the more fascinating situations to watch because, I don't know. I'm a little more bullish on Hollywood than Crane is, but I definitely get the bear case against him. I think just separating him from that situation in Arizona the past couple of years, he could look a lot better. And it's gonna be interesting. Like, if they're not getting the MVS Justin Watson like empty routes, and there's actually 4 good players on the field at the same time, like this could weirdly look more like the 49ers, where it's lower volume but hyper efficient, right? Like, you could have a situation like that play out if all these guys hit. So I like
to underline the point on right, because we did do this with Amon-Ra, and it's like, how can this repeat? And the bet isn't that it repeats. That's not the bet. The bet is that this dude was a rookie, was really good, and now has a chance to be better in his second season. And that should help make up for some of the things. Like when you say like, he probably got a lot of those secondary reads because no one could get open deep. He absolutely did. Like, that's definitely why that happened. Like, a fair amount came from that situation.
But that was also the least efficient year of Mahomes' career. Like, what if this is the most efficient pass?
Right.
Off, like,
what if they pass more? They
a-
moved away from the pass for like the first time ever. So what if the Chiefs are back to being the Chiefs? They're more efficient. They're leaning into the pass like they almost always do. And then what if he replaces some of those secondary reads with more first read targets, which you would expect of a good
What if
receiver?
they lead the NFL in points? Then you probably are going to want to have him. I'm going to guess.
Yeah. So the second year breakout here is, I think, getting downplayed because of how weird the rookie breakout was, which admittedly was very weird. And this isn't a prospect that I liked. I thought Rice was a weird pick by the Chiefs to begin with.
He was a super weird pick. He was an overaged outside wide receiver from a group of five SMU, like very weird pick by them to do it. I don't really know. I mean, clearly it worked. Like, they saw something we did not see, but it was a weird pick.
And, there's a comment here. There's a lot of ambiguous target competition, and we really just don't know how this room is going to play out. That's fair, and that is slightly derogatory, but you want to bet on the fundamentals. Go to the fundamental. If it's ambiguous, go to the fundamentals. And the fundamentals here would be rookies at the end of the season have the potential to win you the tournament, and second-year breakouts coming off of really hyper-efficient rookie seasons with draft capital behind them are pretty big target profiles. If Rice doesn't get suspended and we were getting him in the 5th and the 6th, like, holy shit. That is crazy for what he did as a rookie.
Yeah.
Yep. Move on here.
I was hoping we would get to this.
Yeah. The Packers, Dontayvion Wicks is up 7 spots, going at 116 now. Christian Watson also up a couple spots here. Davis, sounds like you have a Wicks take ready to go. Are you chasing him up to this point? I imagine.
Well, of course I am chasing him up. I was trying to take more Watson. I kind of sold myself on Watson. I did a podcast with Mike Clay, I guess like a month ago, right before I got fired. And he was like, dude, I've got Christian Watson way ahead in my rankings of where the best ball market has him. There was that article about him fixing his hamstring imbalance. So I was in, because there was, for like the first month of Best Ball Mania, he was like the wide receiver.
He was in the 8th round.
Like the 80s or close to 90 maybe.
So I was like, shit. All right, let's just do it. Then I re-Wixed pilled myself on stream last week. I pulled up Jordan Love.
You lit the Wicks?
I lit the Wicks. The AYA app on RotoViz.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
So
That's an old school one. That's back to the beginning.
I mean, it's one of my favorite ones because it's so simple and I think you can learn a ton. So I just pulled up Jordan Love's career minimum 30 targets. I mean, Wicks is number one by a lot, but it's like over like 10.5 AYA when targeting Wicks, and Watson is down at like 6.2 or whatever. So I like re-Wixed myself, and this would be about the price where I'd be like, we really should start pumping the brakes. Like, this is the 4th wide receiver on a relatively low volume team. But every time someone from that building talks about Wicks, whether it's Love, whether it's the coach, whether it's the front office, they just keep being like, he's the GOAT. He's the hardest worker I've ever seen. He's so explosive. It's like no one will say anything bad about him. Whereas Keon Coleman, it's so bad. It's to the point that if Keon Coleman does break out, I'm gonna be like this was like a deep state thing from the Bills to like convince us that he stinks for some reason. But I think literally, I do believe
like Keon, they're like, man, Keon, what a funny guy.
What a funny guy. I believe this truly in my heart. All 5 players being displayed on the screen right now are draftable in fantasy football and are good picks in fantasy football.
So can we just touch briefly on Melton? Because I kind of got a little bit intrigued by Melton. The leg up rankings team was like, what are you doing? Melton's like a wide receiver 5. But he was good last year too. I know it was even more limited, significantly more limited than Wicks, but kind of intriguing.
There's some stat like he was the only Packer wide receiver to have 100 yards last year, or like the first one to do it. I'm kind of making that up, but I think something like that is close to true. Like he actually had a really good stretch towards the end. And I do think it's notable, like in the playoffs, all 4 of these other guys were healthy. Melton ran 30% of the routes. I think that's coming again this year. Like I think it's going to be really annoying for some of these top guys. That's why I continue to be out on Jayden Reed. Like I do think Jayden Reed is a good player, and it goes against a lot of what I want to do in fantasy, like bet on talent, bet on good offenses. I really just think here, like I understand there's universes where I lose, but I think in most circumstances, just betting on all these cheap guys and having a fade on Reed is just gonna work out just based on the price. Because I just don't think there's any way like his role, his route rate is gonna separate from these next couple guys behind him. So
it is tough because he was exciting and he gets a little bit more of that hybrid usage as well. So the route rate doesn't tell the whole story. You know, it's not Deebo level, but it's a little bit of an added bonus. But I have started to get a little bit more nervous about him. It's just like, man, it feels a little like Elijah Moore year 2. And, you know,
oh my God, that's dark. You just took this to a dark place, Pat. I'm not as enthused about Reed, obviously because of the price and because of who he goes next to in drafts, but definitely not a guy I want to have 0 of. Like
any player, any wide receiver from like 50 to 70 in ADP. That's
it's hard for me to get.
Davis is just like
coverage on.
I'm not in on him.
Your opinion is, man, I wish I had more than 3% on this dude.
It's like, oh, dude, Odunze, tough. I mean, look, I love the Bears. Like I get questions about this. People be like, you know, you seem really high on Caleb Williams relative to what other fantasy analysts are saying. So you must have a lot of Keenan Allen and Odunze. And I'm like, well, theoretically, definitely theoretically, I do.
So we're trying to roll out custom ranks on the Sidekick, and I was considering, Davis, seeing if we could test them out on your ranks, because since there's only one team ranked in there, it would be a good test use.
I'm just hoping to Liam it, you know, like Liam like won because the Bills smashed for a year and he drafted 75%. Gabe Davis, like I'm hoping that this is my Liam year, that I ship Best Ball Mania 5 because this is the year Mahomes.
Now, everyone should have a Liam year.
Everyone should have a
nice
Liam
run.
year.
Yeah,
I don't know if your Liam year is ever coming, Corain. I don't know. I don't know if the Giants are ever shipping it. The Patriots, though, year 2, Sam, I think Best Ball Mania 6, I'm earmarking for you. I think
I think I'm out this year for sure. Jacoby Brissett's going to play like 10 games, but I think
come on, don't do that to me.
2025 could be my Liam year.
Look at it. The 1 year I'm in on the Patriots, Sam's out.
No, I'm in. I'm just admitting that I'm like I can't help myself. I'm in every year, so
good.
yeah. Let's talk quickly on Estimate. We hit this in the beginning. I think, like, let's take the Javonte part of this out a little bit. Let's not argue about his ADP so much. Do you think Estimate, just purely based on him being the most likely, like, contingent play if Javonte is injured or gets cut?
He's super smash. He's like I did that Reddit AMA today, and people just kept asking my favorite 18th round pick, and I was just like, Estimate. Like it's just, especially on the half PPR, maybe a little bit less on DK where it's full PPR, but on half PPR, I mean, come on, dude. The beats are just telling us they want him to score like 8 touchdowns. He's a really good pick.
I don't know. I would like him to play. I'd like him to be out there and do something. I get the enthusiasm, I do, but like
this is not the old Pat I know. The old Pat I know who loved Ramondre Stevenson as a rookie. I mean, this is a Ramondre Stevenson-esque pick, Pat.
Yeah, it is.
But there's a report, Pat, that he's fully healthy from the. I think people are overreacting to this like knee scope thing. I don't think that was like a real injury.
I'm not saying he can't be out there now, but I guess I'm saying like rookie running back day 3. And by the way, this is not the old Davis that I know. This dude ran like a 4.7. The old Davis would have just.
I'm a new person.
The Sharpie out and crossed this guy off the list.
I'm a new man.
Didn't he run like a 4.5 at his pro day? One of those fake times.
People are saying-
that always
people are
works
saying-
and definitely alleviates it. Listen, man. As someone who fell for the Jalen Reagor like 4.25 at a private workout, I'm here to say the Combine 40 is the one we generally want to trust. The Estime thing, like, he was a good prospect. He wasn't a great prospect. He was a day 3 pick. He's slow. He's legitimately slow. I would like him to have a good training camp. Can I? Is that too much to ask? Is a good training camp too much to ask?
Let the chat guess what Kyron Williams' pro day 40 was. Everyone lets to guess what you think. Kyron, not his combine, his cheating pro day 40.
4.6.5.
It's worse than that.
4.6.9.
4.6.9. I mean,
that's so bad.
It's so bad. And I think it's to me, this is what it illustrates. Obviously, if I'm making a talent bet, I would much prefer the RAS guys. I do greatly prefer the Isaac Urendos, right? But I don't think any Denver running back is that talented. So I kind of just want to bet on the dude who weighs 225 pounds, which is what Estime is.
Yeah. And I totally hear your point, Crane, on like day 3 pick, but like we're doing this with Tyrone Tracy and Braylon Allen and Jalen Wright. Like those guys are like 100%.
Braylon Allen's had a good offseason so far. He's established himself as a clear-cut number 2.
More and more people are saying this all the time.
On the field. Like in a way that I truly believe. Not because they liked him a lot on draft day.
No, but
like,
Estime was on the field for part of training camp and then got in. He hasn't like not been on the field at all. He's missed some of it, but I don't know. I think and also compare him to Braylon Allen or even Jalen Wright, other day 3 picks that were totally fine. Kamani Vidal. Actually, Vidal is a bad comparison for the point I was trying to make, but I do think Estime has like a legitimate chance to just win the starting job in a way that Braylon Allen, CEH, Damian Pierce, these other guys going around him don't. So to me, it's weirdly in some ways kind of like the Vidal bet. Like I think the upside is worth the squeeze to some extent here. And 18th round pick. I
like that. Yeah. I don't think there's nearly as good of a chance with a guy like Vidal, but there is a chance, which is important.
Yeah. So I'm taking him.
And I don't know, there's sometimes like every year there's guys where you're like, can I just like have some kind of like evidence that I actually feel good about, please? And the market's like, no, you can't. And his price just went up. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
well, the call.
You want evidence? How about more speculation from a
Yeah. So like I might, what probably is going to happen here is that I'm going to take Estime at a higher price.
You're going to take him in around 15
later. Yeah, I'm going to take him around 15 later, and I'm going to be like, yeah, shit, I should have taken him around 18. So you guys will probably be right. That's
completely fine. It's like being mad that you have to take Braylon Allen in the 16th round now instead of the 18th round.
Yeah.
And to that point, I did the same thing with Braylon Allen. I was like, I don't know, man. Like is he still there? They surely they like him some. They've got Isaiah Davis. Like, what am I just supposed to trust that it's Allen? And then immediately they're like, oh, they hate Izzy's guts and he's ahead of Davis. So I was in. But
big news. Javonte Williams' brother is in the chat. Javonte is going to smash. Thank you for the Estime smokescreen here on ADP Chasing.
I'm drafting Javonte, man. I'm drafting Javonte. This dude.
Oh, I'm taking Javonte. I'm taking Javonte too, because I think that report is like the idea that it's kind of one of P. Ryan or Javonte. Like, sure, it's not going to be P. Ryan. P. Ryan's going to be cut, and Javonte is going to get a bunch of easy receptions.
I jumped on Ben Gretch's Stealing Signals stream where he's drafting slow drafts over the weekend, and I told him a report. He's been drinking all day, and he goes, "Yeah, so there's another report that CeeDee Lamb and Ryan Flournoy are competing for one roster spot."
That's a good bit. That is an extremely good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a factually accurate report. Like,
it's just accurate. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of them's favored, but
Yeah. Javonte, I don't know. I think I need to update my stance on Javonte a little bit. I'll be honest. I do think I was right to fade him when he was at like 95, 96, 97 I got a lot of pushback there. I think now at 115, like my thing is just like, why should I take him over guys whose roles seem much more stable? Brian Robinson, Tyjae Spears,
I'm
you know,
kind of
Devin
with you the whole
Singletary
time
even.
on the Robinson one. I continue to think Robinson's a smash.
He is.
Yeah.
He's a good pick. Yeah.
That was the thing for me.
18% Brian Robinson.
How
I'm
much?
drafting a lot. 18%.
20? Oh, 18. I think it's a
I'd
28.
like it. I'd rather be at 20%. Oh, 28%. Wait, that's
I need to draft
That's a
off
little hot.
Crane. I need to draft off your rankings for a week. I really do, because I was having this whole thing with Zach today.
LegendaryUpside.com. Just $10 a month.
I just like my Jacquard tree is bad. Despite getting more, taking bigger player stances, my Jacquard tree is still bad.
It's bad in what? Your teams are just so Davis. It's because the Chiefs are on every team.
Yeah, that's
it is. Well, what it is, it's basically as soon as I make my first round pick, the rest of my roster can basically just be filled out. Like I have a team I draft. Like I've got a team that I draft in the first spot.
Picks of similarity.
He's got 12 different teams just based on the first round. Just cookie cutter.
Like that. Like yes, there's a Davis Maddock team from the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, so on and so forth. And so it's very, and it's like, why draft a bad player when I could draft a good player instead? You know, it's hard for me. It's hard for me to be on the clock and be like, you know who I really want to take here? Joe Mixon. Like it's just very hard for me to do that.
You have a dozen of each type of team. That's your basketball mania portfolio.
More than buddy, I'm maxing the slow puppy. I'm gonna have 1,000 teams with 85 iterations of each team.
We're gonna have to get a microscope out to see your card.
I did my Jacquard tree on legendaryupside.com today, and I'm at 20. I'm in the 23rd percentile.
Who's below you? Who is below this man?
The people who take Mahomes in the 3rd round. The people who jump me on him.
Oh man.
Yeah, I've been trying out this new thing to diversify more, where I just have such shitty Wi-Fi that I auto pick several players. So if you want to come over, Davis, you can try out that strategy. I tweeted out yesterday or 2 days ago. I tweeted out like, yeah, I think Javonte is still a fade, and then my very next tweet was a screenshot of a team with Javonte because I auto picked him.
That's beautiful.
Oh, that's good content.
All right, let's skip Derrick Henry. I don't know. It says he's up 1 spot. I don't care. Jordan Addison. This is the biggest faller. I think we chatted a bit through this last week, but he's down to pick 80, going now, past the kind of upside rookies like Keon Coleman, Ladd McConkey, sort of in that range. I guess Keon Coleman's also fallen, so he's back-to-back with Keon there. Curious, Crane, I know we touched on it last week, but what are your thoughts on Addison with this potential suspension looming?
So based on what you put together last week, it had me thinking that like, it's a kind of a cookie cutter suspension. We know what we're going to get. And there's a decent likelihood that this gets resolved quickly. And then that leads to an in-season suspension, and not necessarily at the very beginning of the season. And the later it gets, obviously, the worse it is. So I think we should be getting a decent discount on Addison, in part because like part of his appeal to me was that Hawkinson is going to start slow, probably miss a bunch of games. So even if he does get suspended, let's say it's the first 3 games of the season, that was kind of like part of the reason I liked Addison. He paired well with rookies. Like you might get Sam Darnold playing in those games, which I honestly think is probably better for the production of the passing game.
You want to talk about? I was wondering if we'd get to the Darnold thing. I'm starting to feel a little bit concerned about Darnold maybe starting the entire season.
Whole year? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's
although. I suppose in that reality, he's playing well enough to have kept McCarthy on the bench, so it's probably fine.
It's more of a McCarthy thing. Like I'm not real interested in taking McCarthy right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just like I don't know. I don't want to like freak out, but I would like a decent discount on Addison if I'm going to be taking him. Like Jameson Williams or Addison is kind of where I'm starting to be.
Yeah, I'm also just like
that's like the right spot. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I think I'm further back than that. Like, I just think this is one of these cases where the underdog market is just slow to react. And again, yeah, definitely don't want to just like panic.
It's because he's a wide receiver. It's because it's literally just because of the goddamn Avalanche. And you just are like, well, Addison.
But he doesn't even help the Avalanche. Like, I don't have any wide receivers. Let me take this dude who's going to get suspended. Like, it's not.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like if we knew, and like again, it's so hard to assign percentages to this, but if we just knew a player is 40% more likely to be injured weeks 15 to 17. Like, how much did that drop him in your ranks? Like, quite a lot. Like, again, it's a percentage chance. We don't know. There's uncertainty. It could happen next year. It could happen week 10 to 12. Like, we don't know. But even if it's like 20% chance he's out one of those games, like, I think he should drop a decent bit. So, I don't know, man. I would take Curtis Samuel, Cortland Sutton over him. I think that's where I am because
I think Samuel is where I moved him in my rankings. I moved him below Curtis Samuel.
Yeah. So we basically are playing it like we're kind of riding it down a little because I don't know exactly where he's gonna land, but I think you guys have it right. Like right behind Curtis Samuel kind of makes sense to me for where he probably should fall to.
Yeah. Just because playing in weeks 15 through 17 is like so important. And even if Jordan Addison is a way better player than Cortland Sutton or Curtis Samuel, I don't know, man. Like, I just feel like it's got to be priced in more than it is right now. Just because, again, I went through this last week, and there's so many instances of guys with DUIs being suspended like 4 to 6 months later, and that's like right on the fringe of the playoffs this year from when Addison got his DUI charge. So,
yep,
it just seems like you're playing with fire. Mike Williams is another guy I wanted to touch on here. He's down 5 spots to now pick 130, kind of going well after the wide receiver window now close to sort of like the Jalen Polk, like Xavier Legette window of wide receivers. I know, Davis, you're down on Mike Williams. Is this fall made you any more interested in him, or are you still pretending he
I did. I clicked a completely uncorrelated Mike Williams yesterday at some point, which is like probably the first time I've done that on it, like a non-Bills bring back, non-setting up. The thing is if he falls a couple more spots, like if he falls like 10 more overall spots or 5 more overall spots, it'll be to the point that you can be like, well, I'll just take Mike Williams and then take Rodgers with my next pick or whatever, which is like, give me another item on the menu for my backdoors. Like give me another thing to go with Baker Mayfield, Jalen McMillan, our Patriots guys, Franklin and Nix. Like give me an alternative to Levis and Chig, and I'll add that more to my portfolio.
Yeah, I think with the Williams, to hear that he's on the Brees timeline is like, when Brees was on the Brees timeline, that was exciting, but it's because he was Brees. When Mike Williams is on the Brees timeline, you're like, isn't the reason I'm drafting a boring veteran for like production I can count on? So, yeah, I've had a hard time. I was probably like not factoring in the injury timeline enough early because I was taking a decent amount of them early, but
I literally forgot he was injured until he was placed on the PUP. I forgot that he had even torn his ACL.
Yeah.
Well, I'll jump in here a little bit because I do think, again, these things aren't always 100% certain, but I don't think the injury timeline's like that big of a concern for fantasy. Again, he had surgery on October 25th, 10 months from then, which would be kind of slow for a clean ACL tear. And all the reporting has been it was a clean ACL tear for Mike Williams. A 10-month return timeline from there would be like a late August return to action. That gives him plenty of time to be back for week 1. Like, I guess I'm not, in terms of just like being on the field, like how he performs is a different question. But in terms of being on the field, I don't think the injury timeline's that big of a concern for me personally.
Yeah, as far as being on the field, that's probably makes sense. But like, it's a little harder for him to kind of hit the ground running, I think, coming off the ACL tear. And it's not that exciting of a profile, frankly. Like what we probably should expect, or what everyone kind of does expect, is that Garrett Wilson over the course of the season just kind of is the dude there. Rodgers is going to be a huge efficiency boost to this offense, but not to Mike Williams. He's coming from Justin Herbert. So he's the one guy where he's not going to get an actual boost from like kind of.
He's the one guy who's been in an amazing situation his whole career.
So he doesn't benefit from Rodgers in that sense. And then Rodgers also plays slow, and this is a Shanahan tree / whatever the hell Hackett is. But this is solid.
Reeves told me that Nathaniel Hackett was theoretically part of the Shanahan tree the other day on a show, and I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" Because it looks like that offense is the hardest possible offense to gain yards in. And I just watched Nick Mullins throw for 450 yards in a Shanahan tree offense. These two things cannot be the same.
He's part of the Shanahan tree in the sense that like a seed fell and was like picked up by a bird and carried like across the sea to a desert island, and it grew up completely on its own. That I would accept.
It's like how technically Peter Jennings and Soccer Dave are both part of the Dan Bach tree, and they just kind of went slightly different directions with their lives.
Yeah, I mean, Nathaniel Hackett. The thing that I guess I don't fully get with the Mike Williams thing is like we seem to only be counting like this Rodgers being slow and Nathaniel Hackett being the OC. Like we really seem to be counting that against Mike Williams, and obviously we're not counting it against the elite guys. Like, I don't know, is Mike Williams that boring of a profile? Like he's only 29 years old. Like you look at his stats.
Guy you're out on. Let's go.
Better, yeah. Any guy that everyone says is bad, his stats are always better than T. Higgins.
Okay,
so
Sam,
Mike Williams again, just better than T. Higgins.
I've been meaning to bring this up to you. Can we do the T. Higgins numbers without the 2 games where he basically was playing like on like a totally bum wheel? Can we?
Yes, we could.
How do your charts work? Like, do you have this one bookmarked? Is there a blank version?
I have a template. Called "Make a Terrible Receiver Look Good" chart, and that's what this one is. But I mean, Davis, I get your point, but these are per route stats. So like the ones where T. Higgins runs like one route and then disappears.
No, but the games after those. So this, I'm intimately familiar with these because they ruined 2 of my high stakes teams, where he came back and ran full routes and got like no targets in 2 of those games.
Yeah, I get that. But I mean, point being like 2.0
to Brett. I like T. Higgins and I draft him. Don't paint me with this anti-T. Higgins brush.
Yeah, but like regardless of the T. Higgins point or not, like 2 yards for route run and 21% targets for route run when you're playing with Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen on the same team, like I think he's just a good player. You can question whether he comes back to that, but he's not that. Like people talk about Mike Williams like he's 35 years old. Like he's younger than Cooper Kupp, than Stephon Diggs.
His body is 35 years old.
Yeah, and no one's saying like on Twitter that like Cooper Kupp's old and injury prone, right?
Yeah.
No. I would never do something like that.
The Cooper Kupp people have gone. The anti-Cooper Kupp people have gone too far.
No, the pro Cooper Kupp people have gone way too far.
No, the pro Cooper Kupp people have not gone far enough.
They really haven't gone far enough.
The pro Cooper Kupp people are like, here's Cooper Kupp's rookie or stats. Playing next to a 5th round rookie from BYU. Here's why the fact that he was way worse than him in every category is a good thing.
Oh my God.
That's the Cooper Kupp defender.
This is Sam Sherman. This is Sam Sherman at his peak. This is
the Cooper Kupp, the spinning of his stats from last year.
Unfortunately, you were wrong. They hadn't gone too far until just now.
Oh.
T. Higgins is also down 2 spots, and I actually don't even.
Yeah, how does this even make any sense?
I don't know where we are. I don't know where we are anymore. Weirdly, I don't have a bad thing to say about T. Higgins at ADP. It's just a funny comparison. He's probably actually not even probably. He is certainly a much better pick than the 3 wide receivers who go right after him at ADP.
Higgins.
Yeah,
I like Kirk, man. I take a lot of Christian Kirk.
I think I'm out on 4th round Christian Kirk on a 0.5 PPR site. I think I can do better.
As far as
I've been Brian Thomas Jr. pilled also.
Oh, I like Brian Thomas Jr., but like Kirk is the number one wide receiver on an offense that could take a step forward. That seems fine. In an environment where like I'm just trying to like piece together wins at wide receiver.
Kirk is going to be the ultimate. He was fine, but wasn't the guy who cost you either way type thing. Like he's just going to be you'll be able to say you're right about Kirk, and I'll be able to say I'm right about Kirk.
I expect that to be the case, but I think like what if you're building a team with Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson?
Sure.
Kirk is very helpful. If you want to take an elite tight end, like there's lots of detours to make. Like I think Kirk is going to help us put teams together.
I have one thought on my Jakard tree is a mess, because then I just do every time I'm staring that in the face, I'm just like, well, just take Mark Andrews and then get Lamar Jackson coming back around.
I literally do that almost every draft right now. It's got to be the 406 before I'm not doing that basically.
Yeah,
I have one half. I'm doing it.
One very random thought on Christian Kirk while we're here. Are we going to get the report, like the same report we had last year, that Christian Kirk isn't running routes in 2 wide receiver sets? Like, isn't it going to be Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis in the preseason?
Yeah, I mean, sure. It'll happen. But
I mean,
I don't actually think it's a bad thing for Kirk, but I'm just saying in terms of his ADP falling.
Chad
like, are we going to get that?
To it, Sam. He literally put it in the chat as you were saying it.
I would be a little surprised because Thomas is a rookie that he would slot in. I think that will be the case over the course of the season, but I don't know that we get the report.
Yeah, no, I mean more like the preseason. I think it was like the preseason snap counts, like Nathan Janke had an article on that. I mean, it just makes sense if you look at Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis. Like, it'd be kind of weird if they aren't the 2 guys in 2 wide receiver sets. Now, this team's going to play in 3 wide receiver sets.
Yeah, they play out of 3 wide nonstop.
They're going to play out of it nonstop, so it doesn't matter. But I just wonder if we get that weird buy. We got that buy window last year in Kirk where he plummeted around because he wasn't running a route in 2 wide receiver sets. I don't know. Maybe we'll get it again.
I would like that. I'm not going to wait for it, but that would be fun. I definitely would like that.
What do you guys want to go to here?
Drafters decided they don't like fullbacks. The one thing I would, which is it's so hypocritical of me because I still draft Sinnott.
I'm just mad you stole my Zach Ertz bit 3 years later.
Well, it was a big board bit, and then now Zach Ertz's ADP is coming up. I did just real quick on Stroud. All I wanted to say is Stroud at ADP teams are just dead, because there will be enough of the pool that got him 20 spots past ADP perfectly stacked that it will be too much to overcome.
I don't know. I
don't think it's a big difference. It's not like he's going in the 13th now.
Yeah. I
saw him go at 85 a couple times, like 85-ish.
Yeah.
Davis, didn't we get him on your stream? We got him on Davis's stream at 96 or something.
96.
On a team where we already had taken Josh Allen, something weird like that. Yeah.
Because what I'm saying is there are just enough weird ass combos like that out there because you don't want to backstack Stroud, where I can't take him at ADP really.
My thought on that is that if this was a total points drafter style contest, you would be 100% right about that, Davis.
Sure.
I think with how weird the advance rate
you just don't know
stuff is. Yeah.
We just don't know, brother.
Not just advance rate, but and that is a big part of it. But I mean, God, these cutdowns are brutal, man.
Yeah.
They're so brutal. You're telling me you're going to open up a team that gets the finals with 6th round Stroud stacked with Nico, Diggs, and Andrews, and you're gonna be like, shit, 6th round, I'm dead.
I might, I'm gonna be honest. It's pretty unlikely I get a team with 6th round Stroud to the finals. That seems pretty unlikely.
That does seem unlikely.
I don't know if this is a smart way to think about best ball at all. It's probably not, but I do know from past years, when I go and look at my teams that advance, I am much more psyched about the teams that have the alpha Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase stack than I am about the teams that I
could not be any more accurate.
The limp dick backdoor Bo Nix, Troy Frank, those teams just feel so dead. Once you get to the playoffs, you're just give me the really good quarterback and the really good wide receiver stacked together. I don't care the price. But I don't know if that's actually true.
Occasionally Brady surprisingly gets it up right at the end. And,
Yeah.
and you get there, you know?
I mean, I think Sam, I couldn't agree. I really couldn't agree with you anymore. Like, but obviously, as Sacrilegious is saying, and as Crane says, like what you will get a lot of the times, you'll make that up via uniqueness, basically, because like there probably won't be that many Bo Nix, Troy Franklin teams that get there because they're the raw point total.
I also think that's just a bias of when you're reviewing teams. It's so much.
It's such a bias.
Completely.
How it happens when you have an elite quarterback.
Yeah, that's
much
a
easier
really good point.
see it.
Yeah, no, it was not intended to be an actually smart way to think about drafting, but it does feel good when you look at your team. And
can we just have a disclaimer? It's just like we're just dicking around, that we just take off for maybe 3 or 4 minutes of the pod.
Yeah, we can have the producers edit something like that in. Once we get past like the 50-minute mark, we're just kind of
it's just vibes. Maybe it's just vibes. Just a vibes disclaimer. Yeah.
Usually by like the 8th player, I haven't really done any more research anymore. It's just kind of like,
why would Odunze be falling in this environment?
I don't know on that.
Are people just bored? It's just people are bored, right? It's got to just be that people are bored right now, and they're like, "Oh, I need to get some more Hopkins or something."
I think there's going to be periodic freakouts on Odunze or Odunze. Is it Odunze or Odunze? Where you're going to get just that like cold sweat, like you're going to wake up. It's oh god, he's the wide receiver 3. Oh, it's JSN again. You're just going to have like periodic little bursts. And I think maybe we went through one of those for some reason, but I kind of went through it for a second. I came out of it and was like, no, like what if he's the wide receiver 2 and Keenan's the wide receiver 3, or you're just betting on him to be really good, which is the bet I made with JSN last year. I don't think he's really good now, but I'm hoping he's just regular good, and he can pay off a 7th, 8th round, whatever. But if Odunze's really good, then we don't have to worry about too much.
Yeah, I will say on Odunze, and this applies to like Worthy and a couple other players. Like, I do think it is really smart, and I think Dan, it's not a extremely I don't know, complicated point, but Dan Zach made this point on one of Herzig's streams last year. Like, he just took the DraftKings ADP and the underdog ADP and just looked for the biggest discrepancies between those two. Yeah, and just said, okay, when Rome Odunze is like 25 picks cheaper on DraftKings, I'm just gonna like full fade him on underdog and like attack him heavily on DraftKings. And I think if you are playing both platforms enough, like maybe it doesn't need to be that extreme, but I think you really can take advantage of that. Like Odunze falls close to pick like 100 in some of the drafts I'm doing over there. Worthy the same. He falls a bunch there. So I don't know. Like if you really like Odunze, you don't have to take him at this price. There like are other places where you can get him a lot cheaper. I did that last year,
but it is interesting because like we are playing tournaments. So, if you were doing like a tournament thing, if you're like the guy's like much cheaper and easier to fit on one tournament on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings, that wouldn't necessarily be a reason to play him because, he'll be higher owned there. I know it's not, he's 100% owned on both sites. So that doesn't really apply, but there is kind of like, he will be harder to advance probably. So like maybe he's lower owned in the final, which is, I don't know, like probably not. Maybe I'm just way too in the weeds on that, but I don't know that it's like as clean as just get the guy where he's cheaper. It probably does make sense to do that.
No, I think you could not be more right. Really, like the thing is all things being equal, you would probably prefer the lower owned guy in the final. I mean, you want to really get in the weeds. Like that's too simplistic. There actually does exist. If we were this good at math, there exists an optimal ratio that you would want to have a guy owned in a final versus where he would be over owned versus where he'd be under owned.
Right, that's right.
So, but going back to kind of like, I don't know, I guess this would be like 2020 DFS of just basically like this guy is going to be on 50% of the teams. I just don't want the guy who's going to be on 50% of the teams because when he smashes, it just creates an extra onus on the other 17 spots on my roster. I'm probably not going to have 17 guys, alive on my roster. So I would prefer to have I would just prefer to have more guys who are lower owned.
Yeah. Yeah, you would. I mean, And so I don't know if a player is, if you like the player at price on Underdog and he's more expensive than on DraftKings, he will be probably harder to advance on Underdog than on DraftKings. So there's some, again, like we probably need people, we need the math whizzes to come in and tell us, but there would be some theoretical advantage to he'd probably be in less finals on Underdog than DraftKings.
Yeah. I don't think you guys are wrong about like the ownership point. I just think like
It's
there's only so many
hard to
things
know if it matters.
It's not.
Yeah,
it's not
so many
even,
things you can control, and I'm just
it
trying to
does
like
matter, but it's not controllable by us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Jay Stress says like people are shocked that the Bears rookie wide receiver 3 is going top set. Like just that statement right there is like, oof. I just feel like I woke up in a cold sweat
because
realizing Odunze is
just
going
like
top
you
70.
All of this cannot be controlled by the fact that it's Caleb Williams who's the quarterback. People are going to be so stunned by how good and how capable he is so early. I actually think there's a chance that the Bears like win the division this year. Like
and that's why you have tons of Odunze, right, Davis?
Do as I say, not as I do, brother.
Just a dagger. I was preparing a dagger the other way because I was going. I mean, it's like every year we're like, well, obviously we'll never let a top 10 wide receiver fall into the 80s again. That would be crazy. And it's like, well, the reason we're doing it this time is because the situation. Also, like those other times, but this time the situation is going to make a difference. So
this time it counts. Yeah,
this time it counts. Yeah, it does feel like, again, to the fundamentals, like top 10 wide receiver, good prospect, offense we're excited about. The end of the season matters vastly more than the early part of the season.
I'm loading up some fast puppies and I'm removing the Chiefs from my ranks. I'm going to do like 20 straight consecutive fast puppies with no Chiefs.
Just get Odunze in all of them. Yeah. I think Odunze is my highest drafted player overall.
Oh yeah.
I think on both DraftKings and Underdog. So
nice.
Yeah.
What,
I mean, yeah.
11%?
Yeah, no, 9.5. I'm trying to get him up to 9.8.
Are you an 8% bro, Sam?
No. I have like 35%, I think, Odunze.
Damn.
Damn, let's go. After
that's
being
awesome.
Well, Odunze didn't get covered by a backup running back at any point, so that's the real difference between the Shane Waldron wide receiver. Remember the name Micah Bernard. He's the most important guy in fantasy football you've never heard of.
Yeah. No,
I'm at 13% Odunze, which I wish was a little higher. I'm jealous of your 30%.
You got to check out the InfoWars episode about JSN's game versus Utah. There's some really powerful stuff in there.
I mean, truly, it never gets discussed. It never gets discussed that like the JSN game, he was getting covered by guys who are not playing.
It never gets discussed.
No one's talking about it.
Heard about it on the show.
No one talks about how a backup running back covered JSN in a game where he had like 30% of his college receiving yards. No one really talks about that.
They don't.
You're in on him this year, Sam.
Well, yeah, it was all the rest.
Are you in on JSN or not? I need a definitive take.
Let me check my exposure. I want to make sure what I'm saying is actually back.
Are you doing slow draft, Sam? Are you driving up to like Rhode Island or wherever to get the slows?
I actually did that this weekend. I entered like 20 slows. I was in Massachusetts. In my head, I am at market with JSN. I'm at 11% in Underdog, apparently.
Okay.
Yeah, man. I don't know. Like, I think there's just enough things that are pointing in the positive direction for JSN. And I think I got most of that. Like, wasn't he going closer to pick 80, like, at the start of BBM?
He was.
Or maybe.
Plus, you've been grinding those wide receiver, cornerback / backup running back matchups. And you like what you saw there.
Yeah.
Well, that would never happen in an NFL game, right?
I don't know. Can we get Sion Vaki back there?
Dude.
If Sion Vaki is covering JSN, then
I literally the chat, I did a stream last week and someone in the chat said, scroll the furthest down. Who is the player you would scroll the furthest down for in Best Ball Mania? and I scrolled down and took Sion Vaki on a 49ers bring back team.
I mean, what's really the difference between Sion Vaki and Jalen Wright? What's really the difference?
Sion Vaki is a stone lock to be active in week 1, and Jalen Wright is not.
I was worried you were going to say Tyrone Tracy, and that was going to make me a little.
I mean, I don't even think this is made up. I think Sion Vaki was drafted ahead of Jalen Wright, or maybe like 2 picks after.
I think he might have been.
He was.
Yeah. And they're playing running back. And apparently
and all the reports, you want to talk about beat writer opinion takes, every single, like Google News Sion Vaki right now, and it'll be like, Sion Vaki is the Lions' secret weapon. What the Lions are going to do to it's all positive. 100% of it is. And can you imagine a more Dan Campbell-ass player than a guy who played safety and then just decided he was the best running back on his team and just like is just like a hard working guy who just wants to.
Apparently he didn't even know. They were like,
true.
we need you to join offensive meetings, and he wasn't even sure for what. He just was like, all right, and he showed up and learned running back. That's a Dan Campbell player.
He had 135 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns in his first game as a running back, and they played him at wide receiver for a game, and he had 111 yards and a touchdown as a receiver. I'm just saying, bro. I'm just saying.
Man,
Uh,
Yeah, 2 outs to contingent upside. Everyone's favorite line about Jalen Wright.
Hoosier
Also
Braylon
applies to
Allen.
Sion Vaki.
Braylon Allen did play defense. Braylon Allen was a 4-star linebacker recruit who then got switched over to running back.
Yeah, and he earned those 4 stars at I believe 14 years old.
He's still 14.
This is, I hate to bring the show backwards, but I got to highlight this comment. We need a stats
Yeah, no, I was
comparison
hoping you would.
of JSN against real defenders and T. Higgins. We'll have that on next week's show for sure. That's one of the best comments in ADP chasing history.
It'll both be 1.9 yards per route run. And then you got to throw Josh Palmer in there too.
Yeah, you throw Josh Palmer in there if you're trying to get
We
derogatory.
need a cut of every player that's been compared to T. Higgins. It's just been so good.
Yeah, I'm getting lazy with the prep for these shows. It's just next week's just gonna be every player versus T. Higgins. It doesn't matter if it's a running back, a quarterback, just their stats versus T. Higgins.
The Brock Purdy versus T. Higgins was a little weird, but
yeah, that comparison was yeah. All right, guys. Let's wrap up with the closing line value game.
Oh, we haven't even been doing this game.
Yeah, we haven't done it in a while.
That's your job as the host of the show,
right.
brother.
It is right.
Well, it doesn't sound right, but it is. I promise you it is.
I think it's usually because we hit the 2-hour mark and our guests are absolutely begging to be left off the show.
Yeah,
So,
they're like, come on.
The old private chat's blowing up.
Yeah.
I already took TJ Hawkinson. I wanted to take him. Does someone have one? Sorry, guys. I'm still scrolling.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal your guys and take Audric Estime. I'm not drafting him.
So,
and you bastards are gonna steam him up.
little bit of game theory here. I learned this from doing it last year. Getting the guy who moves from pick 216 to 198. The way Sam scores this game, it doesn't really help. What you need is the 4th rounder who becomes a 3rd rounder.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Greg Dulcich, I don't know how we got 2 hours or 90 minutes into the show and we didn't mention that Greg Dulcich is not on the pup. That's not who I'm taking.
Okay.
That's not who I'm taking. I'm just the chat is right about that one. I'm gonna do.
That's not a bad pick.
I'm gonna do Curtis Samuel in this environment. He's gonna end up he's gonna get all the Bills training camp hype out of they're going to be like, Keon Coleman, he's a really funny guy. Not sure if he's going to be able to get off the kick blocking team at any point. I think
Great locker room guy, though.
Great locker room. I think he's going to move ahead of Brian Thomas Jr. I think he can jump 15 picks.
I can honestly see that. You know what, man? I need some of that stuff. I've agreed with the ADP too much. I just want stuff where I'm like, what?
Yeah,
there's not enough of that, and that would be really fun. Just good old 6th, 7th round,
a good old 7th round Marquez Callaway, just for the culture.
Please,
yeah.
I would love Keon Coleman at pick 110 just to stuff all the analytics nerds in the locker when he ends up.
Oh yeah, then that would be fun. Then he'd be a good click. Yeah,
the analytics nerds are the only one taking him at this point because we're like, oh no, he's a rookie.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I think they're slowly realizing that they're supposed to hate him because I don't know, his targets for outrun was bad or something. They're coming around.
I don't know. I'm still mad on Coleman. Coleman 8%, dead even with the field.
That's not bad. Let me take. Who should I take here? I'm gonna take. Man, that's such a bad pick. I'll take Greg Dulcich. It's a terrible pick. I got nothing to say, but we're going to be desperate for tight ends, and I think there's going to be enough positive news about Dulcich being the starter. People are going to talk themselves into it. I think I just lost this game. That was the worst.
Yeah, I think Davis just incepted you.
Yeah, I think you did. Oh man, you got one, Crane?
I already went. I picked Estime.
He picked Estime.
Oh fuck. Okay. I'm having a tough show.
You're having a tough show. I mean, Dulcich is like a good conceptual for the, like, he will rise. He's gonna go to be I don't know, he could be like the tight end 20, something like that. Like, the market is starved for it. They have these awful wide receivers. He's healthy. You know, the real issue Greg Dulcich has is that he's not a draft pick of Sean Payton, and Sean Payton hates guys that he, you know, like he's begging to have Step Nepo Lucas Kroll play, like Nepo by association.
Yeah, that's true.
Step Nepo. Step Nepo, so good.
Oh man.
You know, you said tight end 20, and I was like, that feels like high. But Kate Otten is tight end 21, and I feel like anyone can vault Kate Otten.
Like Noah Fant did it. We talked about Noah Fant for like 10 days in a row,
Yeah.
and he was like a 13th round pick for a week.
Yeah. So honestly, he could be right there.
Yeah.
I do love how Sean Payton approaches free agency. He just Googles free agents, goes to Spotrac, and just filters for Saints only, and then just whoever's there.
Dude, how dark is that? Just be on the Saints Spotrac page a bunch. You're just like, oh man, we're all looking for the guy who did this.
The Saints Spotrac is so dark. It'll have the weirdest stuff you'll ever
It's so dark.
Like, Michael Thomas is technically owed $160 million. He's not. You guys think I'm making that up?
Wait.
That's real. That's
Taysom-
shared. If he didn't get cut, he was going to be owed like $116 million.
Oh my god!
Because they kept kicking it down
It's like
the road.
Taysom Hill has like void years in like the 2040s. I think. Like it's really a dark contract table. I don't even know how that was possible.
Oh.
All right, we got to
Good
wrap this
show.
up.
Yeah.
Good show, guys. We'll be, for stuff on my end, we'll be back next week. I think Matt Harmon will be here to do similar show to what we did last year, going through his reception stats.
I was like, I hope it's not similar to this show.
Yeah,
Okay,
I hope it's better.
Sam, before we go, higher career yards per route run, Taysom Hill or T. Higgins. I need you to do the math.
Oh,
please do this chart.
It's you might have to say that for the chart next week, but
I have to do, and please do the reception, and then Taysom Hill like NA.
If we can get Harmon to chart Taysom Hill on reception, that would be that'd be incredible.
That'd be a huge win for the community.
Yeah.
Gobbler, that doesn't work. He already did Rashee Rice, and he said Rashee is fine. Try again, Gobbler. Try again.
Yeah. All right. So we'll be back next week. Crane, what do you have going on at Legendary Upside?
Legendary Upside, an article out last week on the ADPs that I'm afraid to lose as everything gets shaken up. Some of them were like kind of like the Estime style, where I'm like, I should probably have more of this guy, and now he's going to rise, and that's going to suck for me. So I'm going to try to like kind of get a little before it happens. And some of them were some of the stacks that I think are really, really fun right now. Kind of the way I'm building teams a little bit. So check that out. I'm also going to be working on another article on kind of that running back sweet spot. Hoping to get that out later this week.
Davis?
Got Hayden Winks and Ian Hartz are coming on the stream tomorrow. Sam, you want to come on? You got time tomorrow?
DM me. We'll figure it out. I'm not sure yet.
All right. Those two are coming on tomorrow for sure at 1 p.m. Central, then 2 p.m. Central. And then I'll have an article out in the morning about the card tree and exposures and kind of how I'm working on all that stuff. Cause it came out of, I'm in about 900 slow drafts right now. And every time I click on the team, I can't tell if it's a new team or the team I just drafted. And I realized
that might be an issue.
That is a little bit of an issue.
All right. Well, if you need help, I need to circle back and get this in because I forgot to say it on Best for Breakfast. But if you need help breaking exposures, we do have the sidekick, and it works with ADP now. This was the big over the weekend. We launched it with ADP, so it's not just the leg up rankings. You can draft off the sidekick with just ADP now.
Well, pretty soon the sidekick will be featured. You guys will be able to see me get in fights with a non-sentient fantasy football tool on my channel very soon. It'll be me being like, "No, tool, you're wrong. You don't understand what I'm doing here."
Yeah.
So that'll be. I'm very much looking forward to that.
That'll be good content. Yeah, you'll be like looking for Xavier Worthy at the 3-4 turn sidekick. It's not.
We might have to calibrate. We have to kind of dial this in. Yeah.
All right, guys. Fun show as always. We'll see you all next week. Peace.